This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, and around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I am John David Wells. We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We de-propagandize the mainstream media. We make commentary, not news. That's commentary and not news. That's opinion. Yours and mine, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. There is war across the Middle East. This is the Wells Report front page. Good morning. I'm John David Wells. USA Today is reporting the rapidly intensifying war between Israel and Palestinian militants roared throughout a second day yesterday, with the Israeli Security Cabinet formally declaring war and the death toll surpassing 1,100, a figure that includes American citizens. More than 700 Israelis have been killed since Hamas militants began their assault Saturday on almost 24 Israeli towns and army bases. Zaka, a volunteer group that handles human remains after terror attacks, told Israeli media. Zaka said 250 bodies were found at a music festival near the Gaza border. As of Sunday evening, more than 123,000 people in Gaza were displaced due to fear and concerns about the destruction of their homes, this according to the United Nations. Dozens of Israelis, apparently Americans, taken hostage, according to officials on both sides. Palestinian authorities say that more than 300 fighters and civilians have been killed by Israeli counterattacks in Gaza. Each side reported thousands of wounded. Updating to today, a huge rocket barrage hit Israel today. Israel is continuing to face attacks from Gaza, including the southern Israeli city of Ashdod being struck this morning with a huge rocket barrage. This according to Fox News foreign correspondent Trey Yingst. We saw multiple impacts across this heavily populated area, Yingst said while reporting from the scene. We took cover next to a building, but you could see rockets coming off the Gaza Strip and slamming into buildings in this community. The Israeli Defense Forces also said in a tweet that sirens are sounding in Jerusalem and across Israel. Images emerging out of Ashdod showed several cars completely destroyed and debris covering the roads. Rockets also appear to have struck the city of Ashkelon. A huge rocket barrage just targeted the city of Ashdod, Yingst said in a video posted to X. There were no immediate reports of casualties, but surely there are some there. About 120 rockets were fired on Ashdod and Ashkelon by Hamas, according to Al Arabiya. The reported attack comes as Israeli forces captured areas near the Gaza Strip that had been overrun in a Hamas mass infiltration over the weekend, this according to Reuters. Also, according to the Wall Street Journal, this conflict had been planned with the help of Iran for several weeks. The Wall Street Journal reports that Iranian security officials helped plan Hamas's Saturday surprise attack on Israel and gave the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut last Monday. This according to senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah, another Iran-backed militant group. Officers of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps had worked with Hamas since August to devise the air, land, and sea incursions, the most significant breach of Israeli borders since the 1973 Yom Kippur War, according to those people. Details of the operation were refined during several meetings in Beirut, attended by IRGC officers. That's the Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC. Officers and representatives of the four Iran-backed militant groups, including Hamas, which holds power in Gaza, and Hezbollah, a Shia militant group and political faction in Lebanon. U.S. officials say they have not seen evidence of Tehran's involvement. In an interview with CNN that aired on Sunday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, "We have not yet seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there certainly is a long relationship." Quote, "We don't have any information at this time to corroborate this account," according to a U.S. official saying that of the meetings. CNN reports this morning that 9 United States citizens have been killed in the conflict in Israel. This according to a United U.S. National Security Council spokesperson speaking today. Quote, "At this time, we can confirm the death of 9 U.S. citizens. We extend our deepest condolences to the victims and to the families of those affected, and wish those injured a speedy recovery. We continue to monitor the situation closely and remain in touch with our Israeli partners, particularly the local authorities," said the spokesperson in a statement. The spokesperson continued, "We are monitoring the situation closely and remain in touch with our Israeli partners, particularly the local authorities. U.S. authorities have been scrambling to establish how many Americans have been killed or taken hostage in the conflict." Secretary of State Antony Blinken told CNN's Dana Bash on State of the Union yesterday the U.S. is working overtime to verify reports of missing and dead Americans. Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer said Americans are among the scores of hostages now held in Gaza. For its part, USA Today is reporting the Pentagon sent its newest aircraft carrier steaming toward the troubled waters of the Middle East. This over the weekend after attacks on Israel by the Palestinian militant group Hamas. This according to the Defense Department, announcing this yesterday. The show of force is meant to reassure Israel and other U.S. allies in the region and to deter adversaries such as Iran from seeking to take advantage of the conflict. This according to two U.S. government sources not authorized to speak publicly. The USS Gerald Ford Strike Group, including its namesake aircraft carrier, as well as several destroyers and cruisers, have been sent to the eastern Mediterranean, according to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. In addition, squadrons of F-35, F-15, F-16, and A-10 warplanes in the regions are being bolstered. The Pentagon will begin shipping equipment and ammunition to the Israeli Defense Force beginning yesterday, so that is on the way. The Ford is on its first combat deployment. 6,000 sailors are on the aircraft carrier and its associated ships, including destroyers with guided missiles. Army General Eric Correa, the commander of U.S. Central Command, said in a statement yesterday the commitment of forces shows the U.S., quote, "stands firmly with our Israeli and regional partners to address the risks of any party seeking to expand the conflict," unquote. There was strong reaction from U.S. Jews and Palestinians. This from USA Today. Israel and Palestinian supporters gathered in cities across the U.S. yesterday as the world watched in shock and horror at the conflict that has killed hundreds and wounded thousands in the Middle East. A skirmish broke out between opposing demonstrators near the United Nations compound in New York City after a large group of Palestinian supporters rallied in Times Square. Meanwhile, Palestinian Americans protested outside the Israeli consulates in Atlanta and Chicago. The incursion left many Jewish communities and organizations in disbelief, drawing widespread condemnation as it coincided with Simchat Torah celebrations, a major Jewish holiday. In San Francisco, A Jewish community gathered in the Congregation Sharif Israel, one of the oldest synagogues in the United States. Students from Israel's Ben Gurion University in Beersheba, 25 miles from Gaza, were visiting San Francisco for a week as a part of a delegation from the Hillel organization. They expressed their eagerness to return home and help out in any way they could. Yuval Applebaum, 26, told USA Today that his family lives less than 20 miles from Gaza. Quote, "My sister and my nephews are in a bunker right now. Sometimes they have the electricity cut off. My uncle said a rocket landed just 2 houses away," said Applebaum. "It's really hard to be so far away from your friends at this time. I have a friend who left his 9-day-old daughter to go serve with the Israeli reserves." Congressman Cory Booker was in Israel during the attack. He was jogging on Saturday in Jerusalem when the attacks began. As Hamas militants moved into Israel, thousands of rockets were launched. The New Jersey Democrat was advised by his chief of staff to get back to his hotel. This, according to Booker, in a video on X. He took cover in a hotel bomb shelter with others, including, quote, "many Americans," unquote. He went on to say, "Frightened faces. There were children and elderly families. Many Americans," Booker said in the video. "There was a sense of fear and worry and knowledge that many of us were in a horrific situation with things going on around the country at this time." Booker, who sits on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, arrived in Israel Friday ahead of the Abraham Accords Summit in Tel Aviv, where he was scheduled to be a speaker. His office confirmed earlier yesterday that he would be leaving the country because of the war. In the United States, Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the United States House, has implored his Republican counterparts to, quote, "get their act together," unquote, amid the speakership deadlock and the war in Israel. Jeffries, is a Democrat from New York, lamented the very heartbreaking and tragic situation, while implying that the stalemate in Congress could hamper the U.S. response. "It's my hope that my Republican colleagues get their act together, can settle on a speaker who can receive 217 votes," Jeffries told CNN on State of the Union yesterday, "and that we can move forward to get the business of the American people as it relates to our domestic needs," Jeffries continued, "as well as our national security considerations in terms of being there for Israel and being there for the Ukrainian people." For its part, GOP contenders are blaming the Biden administration for policies. The Republican 2024 presidential candidates blamed the Biden administration for the attacks Hamas launched against Israel over the weekend, pointing to the deadly developments as evidence of U.S. weakness on the world stage and claiming the administration was partly responsible. This from NBC News. Several of them insisted, without evidence, that the U.S. funded the attacks by suggesting that $6 billion in oil revenue that the Biden administration recently unfroze as a result of a prisoner exchange with Iran, which has historically funded Hamas, used some of that money to carry out these attacks. These Hamas attacks are a disgrace, and Israel has every right to defend itself with overwhelming force. Sadly, American taxpayer dollars helped fund these attacks, which many reports are saying came from the Biden administration, unquote. This from former President Donald Trump in a statement. CNN is reporting that former Vice President Mike Pence blamed President Biden, as well as his fellow Republicans such as Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, for the devastating attack on Israel by Hamas over the weekend. Pence commented on the attack Sunday morning on CNN's State of the Union when co-host Dana Bash noted that he has criticized, quote, leaders in the Republican Party, unquote, for signaling an American retreat as the leader of the free world as an influence. And then Bash asked, quote, "Are you asking about your former running mate?" That being Donald Trump. And then he said, "Well, I am," highlighting Trump along with GOP members' criticism of Ukrainian funding. He added later, "I do believe this is what happens when we have leading voices like Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Ron DeSantis signaling retreat from America's role as leader of the free world." That is today's front page. You can find full coverage of this war in the Middle East anywhere you can find the Wells Report at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Patreon. We'll have full coverage coming up in just a moment. That coverage, by the way, will also include Colonel John Antel, longtime friend of the Wells Report. He is a former U.S. Army colonel who has been in command in some of the hot spots around the world, is a prolific author, including a book that he is currently releasing called Next War, Reimagining How We Fight the Next War. And it is truly, from what I understand, an amazing book and very prescient. In other words, Colonel Antel right on top of this again. And he's going to spend some time both analyzing what has happened and what the U.S. role should be in it, at least according to his command experience. We'll also find out just exactly what this means for other conflict hotspots around the world. Is this just the opening stanza in what will be a wider conflict in a multi-theater war that could quite realistically envelop the entire planet? We will have more details coming up on that in just a couple of moments as we continue on this Monday. It is the 9th day of October, year of our Lord 2023. A very serious weekend in the Middle East. And we've got all the information that is currently available, and we will most certainly give it to you in just a couple of moments. Next, in fact, here on the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
War has broken out in the Middle East. This is the Wells Report. We're bringing you full coverage of everything that we can find on this not conflict, but indeed war that has been waged by Hamas on Israel. USA Today has their update page going. Once again, this is brilliant work by John Bacon and Vanessa Arredondo. We've been watching their work for a very long time when it comes to breaking news. USA Today's John Bacon-Arredondo combination has just been superb, and this continues that tradition. The rapidly intensifying war between Israel and Palestinian militants rolled through a second day yesterday, with the Israeli Security Cabinet formally declaring war and the death toll surpassing 1,100, 9 of whom have been confirmed as Americans. More than 700 Israelis have been killed since Hamas militants began their assault on Saturday on almost 24 Israeli towns and army bases. That has been reported in the front page. We just did that. Here are some developments. The Palestinian Islamic Jihad's leader says militants in Gaza are holding dozens of Israeli prisoners. Ziad Nakale said no hostages will be released until all Palestinian prisoners are freed from Israeli jails. Israel's Minister for Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer, confirmed to CNN that American citizens are indeed among those taken captive. Israeli Prime Minister Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and all expressed unqualified support for Israel's right to defend itself, according to Netanyahu. Germany and Britain said they were re-evaluating aid packages worth hundreds of millions of dollars that had been earmarked for the Palestinians. President Biden spoke yesterday with Netanyahu discussing the hostages. That includes entire families, the elderly, young children, according to the White House. President Biden emphasized there was no justification for terrorism. All countries must, quote, stand united in the face of such brutal atrocities. President Biden updated Netanyahu on the intensive diplomatic efforts undertaken by the U.S. over the last 24 hours in support of Israel and assured the Prime Minister that additional assistance for the Israeli Defense Forces was en route to Israel, with more coming in the following days. In a message on X Sunday afternoon, Biden reaffirmed his full support for the people of Israel, and the U.S. will remain, quote, in close contact over the coming days, unquote. Also Sunday, Vice President Kamala Harris spoke with Israeli President Isaac Herzog. Harris expressed condolences on behalf of her and her husband for the victims of the attack and all those affected. United States is sending warships and ammunition to Israel. The Pentagon is rushing warships, warplanes, and ammunition to the Middle East and to Israel, according to the DoD. The USS Gerald Ford Strike Group, including its namesake aircraft carrier, as well as several destroyers and cruisers, have been sent to the eastern Mediterranean. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said this in a statement. In addition, the region's squadrons of F-35s, F-15s, F-16s, and A-10 warplanes are being bolstered. The Pentagon also said that they will begin shipping equipment and ammunition to the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF. That is happening as we speak. The thoughts continue to be with the people of Israel and the many families who have lost loved ones as a result of this abhorrent terrorist attack by Hamas, said Secretary of Defense Austin. Antony Blinken, making the rounds on the Sunday talk shows, said U.S. officials are working to verify reports that Americans have died and that others may be held hostage. Any American anywhere who is being detained or held hostage is going to be a priority for this government, for this administration, and for me. But I don't want to get ahead of where we are, said Blinken on Meet the Press from NBC yesterday. We have reports. We need to verify them. As of yesterday evening, U.S. defense officials in private briefings for the House of Representatives said at least 4 American citizens were killed in the attack. That number has since been revised to 9, and the number is expected to rise. This according to CNN. Israel will do anything to free hostages taken in Gaza, according to the Israeli Defense Force spokesman, Major Doron Spielman, speaking to CNN. By the way, there were 12 Tennesseans in Israel who were reported safe after arriving on a church mission a day before Hamas fighters launched the surprise attack. The members of the First Baptist Church of Knoxville are safely residing inside the walls of the Old City in Jerusalem, according to updates from the church. There is a war underway in the Middle East. We are bringing you full details, more of which are next here on the Wells Report.
wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Good morning. We are reporting on the Israeli-Hamas war. It is going on as we speak. CNN is bringing up-to-the-minute news with updates. Israel at war with Hamas after unprecedented attacks. This from 13 minutes ago. Sirens have been heard across Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Sirens are sounding across Jerusalem and Tel Aviv right now. This according to CNN teams on the ground. Teams in Jerusalem heard a series of booms immediately after the sirens indeed were activated. Israeli Defense Forces said in a brief statement today that its helicopters are currently striking in Lebanese territory. Hezbollah has also warned Israel and the United States that they would enter the conflict at a time of their choosing. And they told the United States that the Gerald R. Ford, USS Gerald R. Ford strike carrier group does not frighten them. Well, perhaps the F-16s from the deck of that mighty carrier might change their minds. That being said, Israeli Defense Forces said in a brief statement today its helicopters are currently striking in Lebanese territory. No further details were provided. Earlier, the IDF said a number of armed suspects who infiltrated into Israel from Lebanon were killed, and that IDF soldiers were searching the area. The United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, Peacekeepers, said in a statement today that it has reported explosions near Al Bustan in southwestern Lebanon. UNIFIL, which is the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, UNIFIL, also said its head of mission and force commander, Major General Araldo Lazaro, is in contact with the parties involved, urging them to exercise maximum restraint and utilize UNIFIL's liaison and coordination mechanisms to prevent further escalation and loss of life. Lebanese Army Commander General Joseph Aoun met today with Major General Araldo Lazaro to discuss the situation at the southern border, according to the Lebanese Army. A second French citizen has been confirmed dead following Hamas's surprise attack against Israel, according to the French Foreign Ministry. France regrets the tragic death of a second French national, victim of the terrorist attacks carried out by Hamas against Israel, it said in a statement. The Foreign Ministry, which said it would continue to locate its missing citizens, previously confirmed the death of one citizen. It had not provided details about those killed or the circumstances of their deaths. French President Emmanuel Macron said in a phone call with his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu, according to an Élysée statement, which said Macron reiterated France's full support for Israel and expressed his concern for Israelis taken hostage or injured. Israel's defense attaché to the United States, Major General Hidal Zilberman, is visiting the Pentagon today. He was spotted by CNN entering the Pentagon this morning at around 9:15. Zilberman met with members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, according to a defense official. CNN has reached out to the Pentagon for comment on Zilberman's meetings there, which come as the U.S. has pledged to provide additional military support in the coming days amid Hamas's ongoing attack on Israel. Israeli forces are conducting wide-scale strikes on Hamas centers in Gaza. This, by the way, is from 25 minutes ago, courtesy of CNN. First-rate reporting there. After more than 48 hours of this type of intense door-to-door fighting unseen in Israel for decades, the country's military has retaken control of all the communities around Gaza that gunmen from Hamas had infiltrated, according to the Israeli military. Israeli forces are currently conducting wide-scale strikes on several strategic centers in Gaza belonging to Hamas, according to IDF sources. The Islamist militant group began its assault Saturday morning, firing rockets into Israel, then sending gunmen over the border from Gaza. More than 700 people were killed, including foreign nationals and dual citizens from Brazil, France, Mexico, Nepal, Thailand, Ukraine, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Many of those killed were young civilians who were attending an all-night rave. Israeli rescue workers said they found at least 260 bodies at the festival site. Hamas, which is designated as a terror group by the United States and the European Union, claims to have taken more than 100 people hostage, including high-ranking army officers. Young children, elderly Israelis are among those who were kidnapped and later swept across the border back into Gaza, according to Israeli officials. Foreigners, including 9 U.S. citizens, have been killed, and some are being held captive as well in Gaza. Israel responded quickly to the attack by launching heavy airstrikes targeting Hamas in Gaza and formally declaring war on the militant group on Sunday. Palestinian authorities said at least 560 people have been killed in the strikes, which continued overnight, and that residential buildings and mosques had been flattened. The United Nations Relief and Works Agency said that nearly 74,000 people have been displaced and were taking shelter in schools. Hamas responded to the airstrikes by firing another volley of rockets into Israel today, including 120 toward Ashdod and Ashkelon. The salvos set off sirens in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv as well. Israel's defense minister said today that he had given the order for a complete siege of the Gaza enclave, cutting it off from electricity, food, and water. The decision will almost certainly complicate the lives of those living in Gaza, a small, impoverished enclave whose borders are effectively controlled by the Israeli military. The siege announcement is the latest indication of just how severe Israel's military response will be. The Israeli government formally declared war on Hamas on Sunday, setting the stage for a major response that could include the first occupation of Gaza since 2005, when Israel unilaterally withdrew. Former caretaker Prime Minister Yair Lapid said a ground incursion was not off the table, but it must consider the fate of dozens of hostages taken into Gaza. A CNN team has been forced to take cover as a barrage of rockets was fired near the Gaza border. We have some video on that I want to share. Again, this is from CNN this morning. Let's see if I can get some sound here. Yes, just a moment. Here's sound coming from this report.
Massive barrage of rockets coming in here, not too far from us. So we have had to take shelter here by the roadside. We're just about 5 minutes away. Gaza is in that direction. We can hear now a lot of jets in the sky. We could also hear the Iron Dome intercepting a number of those rockets as they were whizzing overhead and making impact in that direction, not too far from here. We came to this location because this was ground zero for this entire operation of carnage. Hamas militants came on a pickup truck. This was the first place where they breached that border wall, and they basically drove down this strip, just spraying lead wherever they went. We saw, in fact, I was just grabbing it before that happened and we had to hit the deck, but heavy weaponry being used. It's saying we can get up now. Where are we moving to? Sorry, just 1 second, guys. Okay.
Let's come up and go this way and then...
All right, so now I can show you the scene here. This is where those militants first came, opening up fire on all these vehicles. There's a baby carriage down there, turned over on its side. You can see over there, Clayton, if you just show in the distance there, some kind of strikes, looks like in Gaza as well. Return fire. Or is that the smoke from the rocket launches? Forgive me. It's a little difficult after being crouched in a ditch to know exactly what's been going on. But yes, multiple casualties along this area. You can probably see the scale of the damage that was done to these vehicles. A lot of them just blew up with the force of the ammunition they were taking. And they're just now towing away the actual pickup truck that was carrying those Hamas fighters. It met with some resistance. Careful, Clayton. There were a couple of bullet holes in the windshield rather. So they stopped the car, they got out of it, and they just went on this shooting spree. This is also, they believe, where a lot of hostages were taken. They just got out of this, started grabbing people, started shooting people, and taking them back to that side of the border.
All right, so that's from CNN this morning, and we sincerely appreciate that video, as is always the case in armed conflict at any level. The information is sporadic. It is not necessarily as well crafted as you might expect. Some of that will continue in the next few days. In other words, we'll be seeing more and more pointed responses and other things and better reporting from a standpoint of actually having details on the ground. But CNN is doing an excellent job, although it's always tough when correspondents become war correspondents, easily one of the most dangerous jobs in the history of human beings. By the way, for more domestic issues having to do with the United States on this particular attack, U.S. stocks have fallen after the Israeli declaration of war on Hamas. U.S. stocks fell today on news of Hamas, an Islamist militant group, launching a surprise attack that rattled global markets around the world. It comes after recent volatility as investors wrestle with persistent inflation and the Federal Reserve interest rate hikes. The New York Stock Exchange held a moment of silence on the trading floor for the victims of the attacks on Israel. While Israel is not a major oil producer, tensions in the oil-abundant Middle East drove crude prices higher. Investigators worried an already limited supply would be stymied further. Brent crude futures, the international benchmark, rose to $88 a barrel. Oil stocks also gained. ExxonMobil shares added 2.5%. Occidental Petroleum rose 2.5%, and Halliburton gained 3.5%. Defense stocks also climbed. Lockheed Martin shares added 7.6%, and Northrop Grumman gained 8.1%. These are early numbers in today's trading, by the way. Those will change throughout the day. Prices of traditional safe assets rose. Gold climbed to $850.20 per troy ounce. The U.S. bond market closed in observance of Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. The Dow Jones fell 68 points, or 0.2%. The S&P lost 0.4%. The NASDAQ Composite shed 0.8%. And so, once again, we are giving you the news that we have. The Wall Street Journal is reporting as follows. Iranian security officials helped plan the Hamas Saturday attack and gave them the green light for the assault at a meeting in Beirut last Monday, a week ago. This according to senior members of Hamas and Hezbollah, another Iran-backed militant group. Officers of the Iran Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IIRC, had worked with Hamas since August to devise the air, land, and sea incursions, the most significant breach of Israeli borders since 1973 and the Yom Kippur War of that year. Details of the operation were refined during several meetings in Beirut attended by IRGC officers and representatives of 4 Iran-backed militant groups, including Hamas, each of which hold power in Gaza, Hezbollah, a Shiite militant group, and political faction in Lebanon. U.S. officials have said they have not seen evidence of Tehran's involvement. In an interview with CNN that aired on Sunday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken said, "We have not yet seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there is certainly a long relationship," unquote. That's an inexcusable statement. This is opinion time now. That's an inexcusable statement by the Secretary of State. That's foolish. It's absolutely foolish. It's being reported around the world that Iran planned this attack. The people that actually undertook this attack against Israel have been thanking Iran profusely on videos that have also circled the globe. That the Secretary of State of the United States can somehow see no linkage. Indeed, the quote is, quote, "We have not seen evidence that Iran directed or was behind this particular attack, but there is certainly a long relationship," unquote. He went on to say, "We don't have any information at this time to corroborate this account," unquote. This came from a U.S. official, probably not Blinken, but could be. That's one of these weird things that journalists do when it comes to reporting from the State Department. There are senior State Department officials, and then there is the Secretary of State. They can be the same person saying different things for different effect. And once again, this is politics too clever by half. But Antony Blinken says, "We have not seen any actual evidence that Iran had anything to do with this," is just plain stupidly bogus. So much so that I'm really trying to figure out why Antony Blinken is the Secretary of State. Because as far as I can see, the nation's top diplomat, certainly when it comes to this Israeli-Hamas war, is a really good blues guitar player. All I can tell you is this guy has no business in this job. If he's going to make statements like that in public in the middle of a war that's fresh, 2 days, 3 days old, what are you thinking? If you don't know, then you certainly don't look stupid by saying something that is circulating the worldwide press as you're saying it. That is just plain stupid. Like I said, I'm stepping out of the newscaster hat, which I've been doing since we got on the air today, because I had to say something about that. It's absolutely ridiculous. By the way, the Yom Kippur War in 1973 almost brought the world to the brink of a nuclear exchange. Doubt that will happen this time, but on the other hand, you never know how far this is going to go. Hezbollah says that they may engage Israel. They have threatened to engage the United States. There is a great big fat target out there called the USS Gerald Ford, our nation's newest aircraft carrier. That being said, I doubt they have the wherewithal to be able to attack that carrier group, and anything or anyone that would try would be immediately turned into a smoking hole in the water. But that being said, you can't necessarily write off anything. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
War in the Middle East. This is special live coverage of the Israeli-Hamas war currently in progress in the Middle East. I'm John David Wells. Thank you very much for joining us. There is CNN video from last night's shooting, and this is, although somewhat dated, it does give you an idea of the style of fighting being undertaken by Hamas guerrillas.
wild. There were little children executed. There were people that were just like burnt alive, hit by RPGs. People kept hostage.
RPGs, rocket-propelled grenades, not guns. They fired big rockets.
They were firing.
At people.
They were firing handheld rockets. They were coming in on motorbikes, and it was consistent attacking. They were sneaking in over many areas, and they were coming into people's houses and then executing people in their houses, and then also.
When you say executing, I mean, without being too graphic, what do you mean here?
So I could say from one situation that I have a cousin that was at a party that was on the border of
that big outdoor party. The Hamas went right into and shot a bunch of people.
Not only shot, they stabbed, slaughtered, cut people's throats, and many. She happened to have escaped it alive, but the trauma that was seen there. And I'll tell you one story that really hit home with me, where I started to cry yesterday. I was treating people that in critical condition, intubating them, doing chest decompressions the whole time. When I met two kids that just were held hostage, somehow were in a closet for 12 hours, finally escaped. The army came in and got them out. And after that, they said to me, I saw my parents get killed in front of me. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten in the last 12 hours. And that thing, to see that brutality and understand that these are little children that are suffering like this, I can't, like, the amount of crying and emotional, this is going to take a lot of time to process through. But to see that humans can act like that to another type of people is unreal. So
How are you coping with it? You're a professional, I know, but this is of a scale terribly worse.
So this definitely is the scale of terribly worse. It is something that I've seen quite a bit of it in the past, but it brings it to a new level.
All right, so that is current reporting. There is another video here that we have from the Wall Street Journal. And the Wall Street Journal is very adept at all of this, and they have brought us this video, which actually explains an awful lot about the conflict from the first beginning of it.
Palestinian militants from the armed group Hamas launched a surprise coordinated attack on Israel by land, sea, and air on Saturday morning. With hundreds killed, the attack is the largest and deadliest in years, and prompted an Israeli declaration of war. Here's how it unfolded. At around 6:30 a.m., the attack began with a barrage of rockets. Shortly after the first reports of rocket fire, Hamas fighters entered Israel near the Kerem Shalom crossing, an important checkpoint between Israel and Gaza. The video released by Hamas shows its fighters breaching the border fence and attacking the military base there. Around the same time, Hamas fighters also raided and captured Israel's Erez border crossing station. Targeting checkpoints like these enabled Hamas to neutralize clusters of Israeli forces and spread into nearby towns with less resistance. By 7:30 a.m., Israelis began seeing groups of Palestinian militants arriving in towns and cities. The incursion fanned out into 9 towns near the border with Gaza. In the city of Sderot, Palestinian militants clashed in the streets with Israeli police and military. By late morning, Palestinian militants began destroying sections of the border barrier. What started as a small penetration of the Israeli border became a wide-open corridor. Soon, Palestinian militants began taking hostages in towns near the border with Gaza. Many hostages were taken back to Gaza and driven through the streets. By the afternoon, at least 200 Israelis were killed and more than 1,000 injured, mainly civilians. Israeli jets launched retaliatory strikes in Gaza, killing and injuring similar numbers of Palestinians. Hamas said their attacks were only the beginning of a long war.
That was from the Wall Street Journal this morning, as you get some idea of what the scope of the incursion actually is. It is not incursion, it's actually a war. And you can see that it is being prosecuted as a war by Hamas and by Israel. Israel, of course, with a standing military, is working to a degree of mobilization. They have called up Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, after the declaration of war, was able to call up hundreds of thousands of troops, and that is exactly what he is doing at this particular moment. This is going to be a very serious attack, a counterattack on Hamas from Israel. Coming up in just a couple of seconds, Colonel John Antal, longtime friend of the Wells Report, will be joining us. He is a colonel of the United States Army, retired. He's been a commander in many of the hot spots around the world. He is a prolific author and has come up with a brand new book that makes him perhaps one of the greatest military fortune tellers in the history of the United States military. The book is called Next War, Reimagining How We Fight. And I'm sure that there's a great deal in that book regarding the kind of style of fighting that we're seeing now. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, and especially today, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point that out. In short, we depropagandize the mainstream media. We make commentary, which is not news. Commentary is simply your opinion, my opinion, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. War broke out over the weekend. Hamas attacked Israel. It was a surprise attack. It was, by all accounts, except from accounts from the United States State Department, it was planned and signed off on by the terror state of Iran. And that had something to do with an awful lot of this. And whenever things like this happen, we go to a brilliant warrior. He's a colonel of the United States Army. He is retired. He is John Entel. He's been on this broadcast for almost 10 years now, and he joins us. Sir, welcome to the broadcast. Good to have you here.
John David, it's good to hear from you. And again, this is trying times and difficult times, but I'm glad I have an opportunity to share some thoughts with you.
Well, you are the author of a brand new book called Next War, Reimagining How We Fight. And it looks like you have come up with, once again, a book before the actual need. And you do that an awful lot. I just want to bring that up. That's a personal observation of mine. But what we are seeing in Hamas and Israel may just be a precursor to what you talk about in that book. Share a little bit of information about it with us.
Right, I will. Thank you very much. The nature of war is changing dramatically. And in the last 3 years, there have been several wars that we need to study that most people are not paying attention to. And unfortunately, many in our military don't study in depth. They don't know much about it. They're inch deep on it. I started writing a book a few years ago in 2020, right after the second Nagorno-Karabakh war happened, which was between Azerbaijan and Armenia in the Caucasus. Okay, so Azerbaijan attacked Armenian forces in Nagorno-Karabakh. They won a 44-day decisive victory, and it was the first war in history won primarily with robotic systems. So you would think everyone would pay attention, but because in 2020 we were wrapped up in COVID and internal problems, nobody really paid attention. But people in the military and government and leaders need to. So that's the first war, the one in 2020. And I wrote a book about it that came out in 2022, in February 2022, just before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So the book, 7 Seconds to Die, was all about trying to get our leaders prepared for the changing methods of war, the use of drones, the use of all these other systems. And it's not just technology, it's also how these are all being put together. So there are 9 disruptors that I talk about. The transparent battle space, meaning that everything can be seen now from systems that are in space all the way down to systems on the ground, including all the ones that fly. And they can see everything in the battle space, and that changes war dramatically because you can't hide anymore. There are no sanctuaries. And the next is the first strike advantage. The first strike advantage is critical now in a transparent battle space and with precision weapons. You can now see everything and kill everything that you can range. And missiles now, as you know, can range almost everywhere. In Ukraine, there is no safe place. In Israel, there is no safe place. There are no sanctuaries.
Yes.
And then I go into other disruptors. But what you saw this weekend was Hamas, who is a proxy army of Iran, supported, trained, and planned probably by Iran, of course certainly planned by Iran, attacked Israel in a first strike that was very effective. They launched 3,000 plus missiles, some say as high as 7,000, to overwhelm the Israeli rocket defenses called the Iron Dome, their air defense system. And while they were doing that, and the Israelis were preoccupied with all these missiles coming in and rockets and mortars, then they launched their attack at 6:30 in the morning across the fence line and broke through the fence line, and all of these light infantry terrorists ran amok in Israel, taking over towns and killing people. And of course, this is now a major war. Israel is at war with Hamas. And on the northern border of Israel, we have another proxy army by Iran called Hezbollah. And they have been firing mortars at Israel, but they haven't gone full out to attack. And if they do, Israel will now be in a two-front war, both against Hamas and against Hezbollah. And of course, Iran is fueling, funding, and supporting all this. So major changes are happening in the Middle East. We all need to pay attention.
Well, this could get out of hand. This could get out of hand in a big hurry. I wanted to bring this up to you as this came out in 1962. The president of the United States at the time, John F. Kennedy, issued what became the Kennedy Doctrine, which was that nuclear weapons launched from the island of Cuba, if they should strike the United States, they would be treated as a nuclear attack from the Soviet Union upon the United States, requiring a full retaliatory response. Should Benjamin Netanyahu declare something along that line and say that Hamas attacks, Hezbollah attacks, as is well known, they are proxy armies of Iran, should they indeed take this Kennedy-esque idea and say that any attacks from those organizations would be treated as an attack from Iran onto the state of Israel?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think that the Israelis are contemplating many options like that. You know, in order to deter war, the enemy has to believe that any action by you, if they were to attack, would be so overwhelming and so devastating that their ability to attack you would gain them nothing. So therefore, they won't do it. You deter them from attacking. You know, it's like a big bully who comes at you, but if you have a baseball bat in your hand, you can be small and you can still crack his skull, and maybe that bully won't come at you. And that's the point. Now, Israel believed they had deterrence up to this point, and they believed also that their intelligence services were excellent and they would know ahead of time and be able to act. They fought a war in 2021 against Hamas, and they won brilliantly in 11 days. In 11 days. And that was the first war in history primarily won by artificial intelligence. an amazing campaign, but none of that is happening now. Everything has changed in this attack. And it's amazing how from 2021 to now 2023, we have this big difference. And partially it was because the Israelis were consumed by internal problems, but also there was a huge intelligence failure by not just Israel, but also by the United States and the European security agencies, because we all kind of worked together, sharing information. And if there was a major attack understood to be planned by Iran, ready to go, and the United States knew about it, we would have told Israel. So we were asleep at the wheel. They were asleep at the wheel, and they're paying a huge price for it now. These kind of black swans happen a little too frequently. It happened to us on 9/11. We're still asking the question, how could we have been fooled? How could that have happened? How come we didn't know? And we never really answered that question. And so the Israelis are going through the same thing. This is their 9/11 moment, and they're feeling, the same kind of dread and horrible churning in their stomachs that we felt, for those of you that were alive and remember, on 9/11. And they're losing right now upwards to 1,300 Israeli soldiers and civilians in this fight. So this is a horrific death toll for them. And they're going to wage a major war against Hamas, which could easily, as you said, could easily explode into a larger war in the Middle East involving Hezbollah, involving Iran. Who knows from there? And this is all benefiting, of course, Russia and China, who are our primary, competitors, and we have to look at them as potential enemies, because these guys keep saying they're at war with us. The Russians say they're at war with us. They know that we are fighting, with Ukraine against them. We don't have forces on the ground, but we're supplying the Ukrainians with almost everything they need. And the Chinese, of course, have said they're going to attack Taiwan, and if we're in their way, they're going to attack us. So these are very dangerous times.
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is, what's keeping, and we've discussed this before on this very broadcast, what is keeping China from attacking Taiwan right now? This is a wonderful opportunity for misdirection, et cetera, et cetera. And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the idea that suddenly there could be many theaters of war opening up all over the world requiring a United States response. In other words, like you were talking about these thousands of rockets overwhelming Iron Dome, would there be at least tens of theaters of war opening up to overwhelm United States defenses? Colonel John Antel is our guest. He is a retired Army colonel. He is brilliant. He is working with the United States military to avoid something that is common in warfare, not just from the United States, but human. That is fighting your grandfather's war. The idea that warfare has completely changed is chronicled in a book called Next War, Imagining How We Fight. And you do not have to be some military devotee to read this book. This is something you need to be aware of. The war that he referenced earlier involving Azerbaijan, I got to see that presentation that he did. It was eye-watering that you see things normally that have U.S. name tags on them, but these were people that were far outside the United States purvey using these weapons of incredible precision and capability. And you need to know about this. This is something you do need to know. Colonel, you know me, I'm a tactical guy. You're a strategic guy. Let's talk a little bit about those. Didn't look like Katyusha rockets to me. They were on very precise flight paths. Is this one way to perhaps put Iranian fingerprints on this? Because they look more sophisticated than what we've seen in the past.
Right. There's really no forensics that need to be done. We know that Iran supplies them. It's clear they've been smuggling rockets to Hamas, for years. Hezbollah has over what they claim to be over 100,000 rockets. So if they decide to attack Israel, and those were all from Iran, if they decide to attack Israel, they can launch those all almost simultaneously. Imagine that kind of an onslaught. That kind of a first strike by an enemy force gives them a potentially great advantage. So imagine Pearl Harbor. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor in World War II on December 7th, 1941, as your listeners know. And they launched a devastating attack all the way from Japan with aircraft carriers. And had they gone through their second and third and fourth waves, if they had kept at it, they could have absolutely destroyed everything at Pearl Harbor, including the docks, the fuels, everything else. And World War II would be very different. So everyone who now has these precision weaponry and the ability to use satellites and unmanned air systems and even balloons to be able to see the ground precisely and then help direct those weapons now has the ability to do a devastating Pearl Harbor whenever they want. And that's what Hamas did. They were able to use that first strike to gain a tremendous advantage. And some people say, well, I don't understand why Hamas, what's Hamas's next move? What are they trying to do? How are they going to be able to defeat Israel? How are they going to be able to hold the ground? And of course, the answer is they're not. They're a terrorist organization. They achieved their goal already. They had strategic surprise against Israel. Israel has taken thousands of casualties. They have invaded Israel. For them, this is the greatest propaganda information war victory they could ever have.
Yeah, indeed. And not only that, it is being called by Benjamin Netanyahu and others in Israel as their 9/11. We are speaking with Colonel John Entel, U.S. Army retired. He is a brilliant author. He does presentations around the country talking about the new era of warfare that we currently are a part of and involved in, whether we know it or not. And indeed, things are getting a little out of hand here and could get out of hand even worse. In 1973, there was something called the Yom Kippur War. Almost to the day 50 years ago, we now see something very similar going on with Israel. That 1973 war took us very close to an armed conflict that could have been World War III. Is that where we are now? No hyperbole here, just fact. This is the Wells Report. Back in a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. His name is Colonel John Antal. You can find him at johnantal.com. That's JOHNANTAL.com. I'm going to show you that right now. johnantal.com. You should go there. He will teach you about leadership. He will teach you about warfare. You can scroll down and you can see more about this incredibly great man who has, without doubt, made awareness, as it says on the website here, made awareness for not just the United States military and militaries around the world, but ourselves as well. So let's talk a little bit about this, a little bit more about this, Colonel. You talked about the idea that indeed, you know, this could be one of those conflicts that could go wider very quickly, and you just gave me an analysis that essentially puts us back in 1941 before the Pearl Harbor bombing. Go through that with us, would you please?
Yeah, a year ago, the British chief of staff of the British Army, a new general, took charge, and he said, "This is our 1937 moment, looking at what happened in Ukraine." And what he meant by that was, we only have a few years left before 1939, when the World War II started. So the British decided they need to go. The British Army decided they need to go on an urgent mission to get ready. Well, that was a clarion call from his pulpit. I think right now that everything has accelerated. I think we're really in a 1941 moment now. And you think about it from the United States of America's perspective. You know, back in World War II, for those of you that are historians and understand what happened, there was a war raging in Europe and a war raging in Asia, while we didn't do anything because we weren't ready to fight, and we wanted to stay out of it. And that started in 1939 and it went on into 1940 and 1941. And in the summer of 1941, we were all just happy, thinking we're going to stay out of this thing. And December 7th, 1941 came with the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor, and we were thrust into World War II. Now, things can happen very quickly. We hope and pray that our deterrence is such that in this day and age, people will hesitate and not be willing to attack us or our allies. But you can see already, with a major war operating in Europe, a major war now happening in the Middle East, you know, confusion on our southern border, the Chinese saying they're going to invade Taiwan, North Korea saber rattling all the time and now making arms deals with Russia in a way they've never had before. The entire world is in turmoil here, and there's a lot of dictators that want to do bad to us. And they're going to do everything they can to disrupt us and cause problems. And Russia, of course, is very gleeful at what's going on in the Middle East. And although they are busy with the war in Ukraine, you know, they will offer their support to Iran to make this happen. So the Iranian, North Korean, Russia, China axis is a real thing. So we see ourselves, you know, right now as having a peaceful situation in the United States, getting ready for an election in 2024. You know, what could go wrong? I mean, there's so many things that can happen between now and then that we all need to prepare for mentally. And we also need to start getting our elected representatives and others to think strongly about this. I've worked with folks on the Senate Armed Services Committee to brief them about the changing methods of war. In fact, the foreword to my book, Next War, which just came out on September 28th of this year, a few weeks ago, is written by Senator Mike Rounds, who is on the Senate Armed Services Committee. And that foreword was written by him because he realizes how important it is to get the thinking changed. You have to change your thinking first before you can do anything else. And our problem right now is that leadership matters, and we have a lack of leadership across many spectrums.
Sir, it is a privilege to have you. It always has been and always will be. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be tapping on your front door a little bit more because this doesn't look like it's going anywhere soon. And if indeed Iran takes a look at that great big aircraft carrier out in the Med and says, hey, you know what, we've got a rocket that might reach that, this could get out of hand in a big hurry.
That's correct.
All right, sir. God bless you and yours. And please accept my most sincere thanks for taking this interview. You had about, I think it was like 4 or 5 minutes notice, I think. Something like that.
John David, anytime, and thank you for all your listeners. You know, I'm long on America. We'll get through this. God bless you all. Take care.
God bless you, sir, and I appreciate it. John Antel joining us. Don't forget, Next War is the next book, and you need to read it. Back with more in just a moment.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? low-cost airlines.
With one call to Low Cost Airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
This is the Wells Report. We bring you news, analysis, commentary, and debate. There is one story today. That is the Israeli-Hamas war. However, there are ancillaries that must be discussed that bring us back to our nation now. Specifically, there are Palestinians and Americans of the Jewish faith and other faiths coming together in some low-order conflict. There was a skirmish yesterday in Times Square as Palestinian supporters and Israeli supporters clashed in that very famous enclave in New York City. Will there be more of those things? Well, indeed, there have been Palestinian supporters outside the Israeli embassies in many of the American cities. We'll be watching that today as this continues to unfold. We want to thank Colonel John Entel for joining us once again. And we brought something up earlier today having to do with what was, I consider, a reprehensible move by Antony Blinken that talked about how on, I believe it was Meet the Press yesterday, the Secretary of State, which is a post that is well over his head as he just proved, said that there was no linkage between these Hamas attacks and Iran. Well, it didn't take long before somebody else realized the same thing. Republican presidential candidate Nikki Haley blasted Secretary of State Antony Blinken as irresponsible for claiming there was no connection between the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel and the $6 billion of frozen funds that the U.S. released to Iran as part of a prisoner swap deal. Haley, the former governor of South Carolina and former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, appeared this week on Meet the Press with NBC. She responded to Blinken's earlier comments that the $6 billion could not have contributed to terrorism, and the United States is yet to see evidence that Iran supported the attack. Secretary, you've got to be kidding. You know, there seems to be an awful lot of willingness on the part of people in the administration of this nation at this particular time to ignore what is plainly in front of their face. The Secretary of State can see no linkage between Iran and Hamas and Hezbollah. Really? And then Nikki Haley continued by saying, quote, I think it was actually irresponsible for Secretary Blinken to say the $6 billion doesn't weigh in here. I mean, let's be honest with the American people and understand that Hamas knows and Iran knows they're moving money around as we speak because they know $6 billion is going to be released. That is the reality. Blinken had earlier responded to Republican criticisms of the deal that the Biden administration made to unfreeze $6 billion in funds in exchange for 5 U.S. prisoners held in Iran. It's very unfortunate that some are playing politics at a time when so many lives have been lost and Israel remains under attack, said Blinken, arguing that the $6 billion in funds from that account could only be used for medical supplies, food, and medicine. Haley claims that it was ignorant to think the funds could not be moved around and used for other means. To think they're not moving that money around is irresponsible. They hate Israel. They hate America. They're going to continue to use this. It was wrong to release the $6 billion. Indeed, Iran, on its part, immediately upon release of the $6 billion, said we're going to spend that money any way we choose. Okay, how about rockets for Hamas? You want to talk about military supplies or medical supplies, et cetera, et cetera? Okay. How about bandages for the Hamas fighters that have been shot by the Israeli Defense Force, for example? And Antony Blinken, woefully in over his head now. There is no doubt about it. And that is not good. And I'm going to tell you what I think why that's not good. Here's the circumstance. What if Iran takes out the USS Gerald R. Ford? What if Iran sends a rocket and takes out the entire carrier group? They've got nuclear weapons, I'm sure of it. They would not be doing this if they didn't. What if they decide to step up to the big leagues and take out a U.S. aircraft carrier? What's the United States going to do? The obvious move is to take out Tehran. But do we have anybody in American leadership that has the guts to do something like that? If we don't respond to an attack directly on the United States, and you know that Iran has got to be thinking about this, if we don't respond to it, then that's World War III. Now, I wish I had better news. I've been trying very carefully to keep this from escalating into this icy gut ball, gut-sinking, wrenching, anxiety-laden screed about what might happen. But we're in a tough spot here. We are in a tough spot here. And if Antony Blinken represents the kind of leadership we can expect from the Biden administration, not even being willing to even entertain the idea that Iran might be supporting Hamas and Hezbollah, you must be out of your mind. And that is not what we need right now. What we need right now is we need steely-eyed looks at Iran and Hezbollah and Hamas. Israel's handling Hamas and Hezbollah. I'm pretty sure that Israel's got that covered. But the United States and Iran, these people have been spoiling for a fight with us, and we just gave them a really fat target. Now, don't get me wrong. The USS Gerald R. Ford could defend itself. There are Iranian assets that could be arrayed against that carrier strike force that would probably not get within 200, 300 miles of the place. But the simple case of the matter is that that is a very tempting target for those people. And we've got to start thinking about what happens if they indeed engage us in that fashion. Now, I'm sure they're doing all of this. I have a great deal of faith, even at this time, in the United States military, because there are plenty of people there that really know what they're doing. All I can say is that we do need to be aware that there are things happening in this nation that may indeed call us to a much higher purpose than we were anticipating even last Friday. And this does, by the way, take us to the southern border. I'm sorry, what about all those military-aged males again? Well, what about all those guys? I mean, is it possible for Iranians to learn how to speak Spanish and pass themselves off as Hispanic? Nah, couldn't be, could it? All those military-age males pouring over the border in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. What are they up to? You know, one of the things that we've noticed here is that when an opposing force decides what they're going to do is take on a populace, which is exactly what Hamas has done. Hamas just went over the border and started killing anybody on the streets. The first thing that I thought of was, boy, you know what? I'm glad I live in Texas where I can actually have high-capacity magazines and, honest to God, real rifles that work really, really well. But I'm thinking about all those other places run by leftist crazy people that don't think that anything like that could happen. It says right there in this new book by John Antel. It says right there, okay? This is one of the write-ups on the book. The clocks are striking 13. Time is running out. In modern warfare, a failure of imagination will get you killed. Reinforce this failure with hubris, an attitude that you do not need to adapt since no enemy can match you and the nation's survival is at risk. While the people in Washington, D.C. are ruminating about what to do next, while they're doing all of that, the war could be over by the time they make a decision. So just exactly how far do you, that's the hubris part. Just how far do you want this to go? And once again, there is one thing for sure that even I can see. We have a chance of losing the initiative. Hezbollah has struck. It was a failure of not just Israeli intelligence, but American intelligence and European intelligence. They managed to keep this one under wraps for a very long time, didn't they? They've learned a lot since 9/11, haven't they? And so, what we have here is we have a very serious problem where other people are dictating the terms of our response. That's called losing the initiative. That way you're fighting somebody else's war. And that's where we are at this particular second. Will it last? I don't know. But I got to be perfectly honest with you. If I'm Russia, if I'm China, if I'm North Korea, and I'm betting North Korea because it's a smaller thing, I might start threatening South Korea. That's what I might do. That would be the next thing. And once again, suddenly we have a distraction over here in the Middle East. Now we have a distraction in the Pacific Rim. And what will Russia do? What will China do? Just about anything they want. And that's where we find ourselves today. Now, is this something that may not happen? Yeah, that's something that may not happen. What do I think the odds are? 50-50? Hopefully I'm wrong. As a matter of fact, I've never ever wanted to be more wrong than I am right now. Now, there's already been a recrimination between Nikki Haley and the former Secretary of State of the United States, but it appears as though he's turned himself into the Secretary of Boobery. However, Donald Trump had some very strong statements regarding the President of the United States. These you can find on X. Let me give you a look at these here on the Wells Report.
Joe Biden just agreed to pay a $6 billion ransom to the Iranian dictatorship in exchange for hostages. This is yet another Biden surrender and a further blistering humiliation of the United States of America to the world stage. But even worse, this decision will be extremely deadly. Biden is giving $6 billion to the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism, just as when Obama sent the Iranian regime pallets of cash for hostages in the dark of night. Remember? Plane loads of cash. Biden's ransom payment will be immediately used to stoke violence, bloodshed, and mayhem throughout the Middle East and all around the world, costing countless innocent lives. It's also guaranteed that the fanatical Iranian regime will use this money to advance their nuclear weapons program, putting Israel, the United States, and the entire world in very grave peril. They are reportedly just weeks away from a nuclear bomb, something which would have never happened under the Trump administration. Tragically, Biden's ransom payments also make it dramatically more likely that even more Americans will be held captive in the future, because Biden has shown that he will pay gargantuan sums of money, meaning the kidnappers turn a massive profit. They're making money hand over fist. In other words, Biden has put a bounty on the head of every American citizen abroad. Under my leadership, we brought home more than 50 hostages from all over the world, and we never paid ransom money to do it, not at all. We did it with diplomacy, and we did it through strength, and we will do it again when we are reelected as President of the United States. Our country is failing. We are a failing nation. We will turn it around, and we will make America great again. Thank you.
All right, that's President Trump taking the obvious political opportunity to bring things around. But, you really can't deny the fact that indeed there was a move that could be seen as exactly as described by the President of the United States. Now, make no mistake, or the former President of the United States, make no mistake, he's under fire too. Former Vice President Mike Pence blamed President Biden, as well as his fellow Republicans, Donald Trump, Ron DeSantis, for the devastating attack on Israel by Hamas over the weekend. And this is what he had to say over the weekend, and here it is on the Wells Report.
I also believe this is what happens when we have leading voices like Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, and Ron DeSantis signaling retreat from America's role as leader of the free world. What happened in Ukraine was an unprovoked invasion by Russia. What happened this weekend was an unprovoked invasion by Hamas into Israel. And I really believe now more than ever, both the debate within the Republican Party and the debate within America is whether or not we're going to once again stand without apology as the leader of the free world, as the arsenal of democracy. The heartbreaking images coming out of both of these theaters of operations remind us that America is the indispensable leader of the free world.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about that. People say the United States isn't the world's policeman. Oh, really? Yeah, I think that horse is out of the corral, as we say in Texas. What do you believe and what do you think? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. A lot of very serious news today on the Wells Report. More news than actual debate and thought, etc. If you would like to change that a little bit in the remaining moments, by all means, join us again. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. You can join us on our chat. The chat room is at Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, and Patreon. I see Kyle Clark here. Kyle, it's always great to have you here. Back with more in a moment. This is the Wells Report for Monday, October 9th, 2023.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. World War I started with an assassination of a Hungarian archduke. It was apparently a small event that blew up into World War I. The United States was sitting out World War II as two fascist superpowers, totalitarian socialist superpowers, one on one side of the globe and one on the other side of the globe, decided to engage their neighbors and align themselves as the Axis powers. Japan made the incredible mistake of, as Admiral Yamamoto said, of awakening the sleeping giant to the demise of both of those nation states. And now we find ourselves in a position where these circumstances are certainly lining up into ways that could blow up a lot faster than we could make decisions to remedy. Now, I wish I had better news, but that's where we find ourselves today. Iran is in a position where it has been able to fight against Israel, a nation they say they want to destroy. They have made it plain that their search for a nuclear weapon only ends with the disappearance of Israel. Well, Israel already has nuclear weapons. Arguably, they're the best thermonuclear weapons on the planet, because the people who gave the United States its nuclear inventory all moved to Israel and built their nuclear inventory. And Israel will not suffer another Holocaust at any level. So far, there are over 1,000 casualties of this, which is not a typical Hamas attack. A few rockets lobbed over the frontier of Gaza, the West Bank, into Israel. This is on a completely different level. This is an actual, honest-to-goodness, armed invasion. Not against military targets, but against the populace. Hamas warriors went across the frontier and started shooting anybody they could see. They kidnapped some, and they took them back to Gaza to try to slow down the military response. Many of those people kidnapped, some of them Americans, will lose their lives in the military response into those areas. And we need to be able to understand that that's where we find ourselves today. What do we do? Well, all I can tell you is that you might want to be a little bit more vigilant about the people around you, because once again, we have all kinds of people coming across the southern border, as I brought up before. Is it possible for Iranians to learn how to speak Spanish? Is it possible that they could disguise themselves as Hispanics from Central America? Venezuela, for example? Considering that is also a nation state involved with Russia, et cetera, wouldn't that be a great place to stage a whole bunch of Iranians into the United States across a wide open southern border? And no, I'm not talking politics here. I'm just talking facts. If I was talking politics, I'd point out very succinctly that indeed both parties are responsible for the incredible lack of security that we have on our southern border. But I got to be perfectly honest with you. We have not suffered a fight on the continental United States since the War of 1812, at least from a foreign source. Certainly, the Civil War was a different thing. But these will be people from other countries. And this war will happen amongst us for the first time in the nation's history. Just at a time when the current prevailing government seems to be hell-bent on trying to disarm all of us. I don't think that's a really good idea. And so all I can tell you is, watch carefully what's going on around you. And as I said during the 9/11 attacks, where this show actually got its start, and through all of the things that have happened from then until now, you can depend on accurate, honest reporting of the issues of the day, the news, on this broadcast every single day. You can promise, I promise, there is no more important work. There is no more important work. We must stand with the state of Israel. We must stand with our allies. But not just here. Our allies in South Korea. Our allies that are under the gun from totalitarian, communist, or socialist, or both regimes all around the world. Because this could get out of hand in a big hurry. And the question is, will we be able to handle it at the speed of the new war? Once again, I want to thank Colonel John Antel for joining us today, giving us his rich experience as a United States military commander in the hottest spots on the globe. And he will join us in the coming days. I also want to thank our executive producer of this broadcast, Dirk Steele. This broadcast is immeasurably better because of him. Our publicist and associate producer is Jube Dankworth. Find her at netmediaconsultants.com. My name is John David Wells. You have been watching The Wells Report. We'll be back again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Time. And okie dokie. All right, that's what we got today. I hope I didn't scare you to death. Take good care, okay? Let's see here. Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Love, you got my note, okay? You got my note? Just saying. You know, you don't like the show? Go away. Real simple. And if you don't want to do it voluntarily, or if you don't want to play by the rules, which are to contribute, not to detract, if you don't want to do that, leave. Okay? And if you don't want to leave voluntarily, I'll be more than happy to engineer it for you, but I'd rather not. I just need you to stop distracting and stop criticizing and stop haranguing me with all this political garbage that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. How many times Israel was attacked? Hamas did not come across the frontier and sunder the Israeli population during the Trump administration. Okay? Practice your politics someplace else. We do news here. Okay? Absolute last warning. All right? Play by the rules. You know what they are. You're good at it when you do. Choose not to. Bye. All right, that's all I got. Let's see who else. Yeah, exactly. Since we don't know who's already crossed our southern border. Yes, indeedy. Why am I so angry? Because you pissed me off, Mr. Love. That's why I'm angry. I'm done with you. I've been telling you this stuff for years. Okay? I've done everything I could. I've bent over backwards to keep you on this broadcast. But you're making it impossible for me, and I'm done with you. Either contribute or leave. Your perspective is welcome. Your angry snark, your ridiculous criticism, your detraction, your just plain distraction from all the things I have to do on this broadcast is unwelcome. So make up your mind. All right? You do what you do, and I'll be more than happy to be a guest on the Mr. Love 825 report. But this show's mine. You're welcome to be a part of it or not. Okay? Yeah, bye, dude. God, I'm going to miss you. Not. All right, there we go. And let's see, what do we got here? Leng Sengo. So, Leng, I hate to ask you this, but are you male or female? She says, or he says, it is wise for Israel and Palestine to live alongside rather than having another never-ending war, and why not give peace a chance for the sake of humanity and all the children? Israel may be best and most powerful nukes. Iran seems to have nukes, and the disadvantages for Israel was more than 1 billion Muslims. Also, with the support of North Korea, China and Russia all have powerful nukes. The country can counter the support of Palestine with the countries of nukes. Just give peace a chance for all the sake of humanity and for all children. All right. All right. Yeah, I'm going to get ready for it, Mr. Lowe. I'm going to. I can hardly wait to hear your show. But you know what you're not going to get from me? You're not going to give the same garbage that I give you. Good luck on getting me back on the radio. Please, I would appreciate it. I'm working on it. It's not working, but I'm working on it. Otherwise, I'm going to stay right here and tell people the news. There may be 15 people watching, but that's 15 more people than that have information that the other people don't have. And that's good enough for me. All right, I got to go.